morning, everyone. Boker Tov. There's a story told about a professor in a university who gave his students a test. And the last question on the test was, what's the name of the janitor in the building? And the students came and said, what does this have to do with the class? And he said to them, when you get a job one day and you're in the workplace, you may not realize this, but the most important thing is how you treat all of your employees, all the way down to the janitor who's mopping the floor in the hallway. If you know his name, if you interact with him personally and warmly. There are different types of tests in life. Most of the tests we think about are tests about information, college, school, but there's tests of character. What kind of a human being are you? And in a sense, those are the most important tests of life, because it's not just information, how much knowledge you have, but what is your essence? What is your character? The Torah tells us in this week's parsha that God tells Abraham, go on a journey to the land that I will show you. And our rabbis say that before God chose Abraham to be the forefather of the Jewish nation, he gave him 10 tests, 10 trials to determine whether he was fit to be the progenitor of the Jewish people. And only when he passed all 10 trials did he make him the father of the Jewish nation. The question is, what was the first test? So there's a debate amongst the rabbis. The first test seems to be Lech Lecha, the age of 75, pack your bags, travel to some unknown destination, the land that I will show you, which was the land of Israel. But there's a midrash. The midrash says that Abraham's father, Terach, was an idolater, and his father worshipped idols, and one day Abraham smashed the idols of his father, and his father took him to Nimrod, who was the king at the time, and it was a pagan religion. He said, bow down to our idols, and he said, if you don't, I'm going to throw you into a fire. And he threw him into the fire, and miraculously, Abraham said, I won't bow down to the idols. He went into the fire, miraculously God saved him. And that's why the name of the location that he left was Ur Kasdim, the fires of Kasdim. So some say that based on that measures, that was the first test, that he allowed himself to be thrown into the furnace rather than bow down to idols. The question is, how could you even compare the two tests? You know, all of us that had to travel, sometimes we went on trips, sometimes we had to relocate. It's not easy packing up and moving to a new place, especially at 75. But it's not the most earth-shattering test. Many of us have done things like this, especially if God came and told you, I want you to move to Israel. You would go tomorrow, right? But to willing to go into a furnace, not to betray your faith in one God, that's an amazing act of courage. So how can there even be a question, what was the first test? And the answer is that there are two types of tests in life. There's the test of Ur Kasdim, the fires of Kasdim, and there's the test of Lech Lecha, going on the journey. What's the difference? There are the tests that are what you would call the headline-grabbing tests. The tests that are spectacular, that are gigantic, that if you pass this test, you become a famous hero, and all the newspapers write about the courageous thing you did. And then there are the quiet tests of day-to-day life. The little things that no one even knows about. It's between you and God. You know, somebody turned to you for help, and you went out of your way to help them. It's a test if you're going to help them or not. Nobody knows. Nobody's going to give you a pat on the back. No one's going to congratulate you. No one's going to give you a medal. Nobody's going to write about you in the newspapers, but you passed your test. To go to shul or not go to shul in the morning. I want to speak Lashon Hara, I'm going to control myself. No one even knows that I controlled myself not to speak gossip. But that was a test. The day-to-day ordinary test of life that no one's going to make a big deal about, but you passed that test. And therefore, from one perspective, according to some opinions, the first test of Abraham is Lech Lecha, not the fires of Kasdim. You know why? Because those big tests, wow, I'm going to be a famous hero, everyone's going to say I did something incredible. In a way, those are the easier tests to pass. The harder tests to pass are the quiet day-to-day challenges that we face, that Hashem is our witness, that we did the right thing even when we were challenged. And that's the first trial of Avraham Avinu, because that's the real test of a person's character, when we pass the small day-to-day tests that we all face in our daily lives. It's a story that happened in 2002 in Tel Aviv. It was an Egged bus driver pulled up at a stop, and everyone packed on. And as he was about to close this door, one guy jumped on the bus, but he lost his footing, he fell back, and he hit his head, and he started bleeding. The bus driver put the gear and brake, the bus, and he ran out to help the guy. And there was a paramedic on the bus who jumped out, and they started tending to this young man. And he was bleeding, and he was agitated. He was trying to move his hands, and they said, calm down. And they started unbuttoning his shirt to give him some air. And the bus driver, whose name was Baruch Newman, sees as he's unbuttoning his shirt that he has wires. He had a suicide bomb vest. This guy was a bomb. He was about to go on the bus. So the bus driver they pin this guy down, they start screaming, everyone get off the bus, a suicide bomber, evacuate. And people start fleeing the buses. And they're holding this guy down. And they see there's this one old lady who can't go quick enough, and a young man was helping her get off the bus. And they waited till she was far away enough from the bus. And at that point, the bus driver said to the paramedic, by the count of three, we're running. 1, 2, 3, and they ran. And literally, just as they started running, the guy detonated himself and blew himself up. Many people were injured, but thank God most of the people survived. Later, it was written up in the newspapers, and this man, this bus driver, Mr. Newman, was interviewed on the Israeli news. And they said, you're such a hero, you saved everyone on the bus. The bus driver said, I'm not a hero. He said, I'm not a hero. He said, what do you mean you're not a hero? He says, you know who was a hero? That young Israeli boy who could have ran for his life, but stayed behind to help an old lady get off the bus because she couldn't get off quick enough. He said, I'm a bus driver, I was doing my job. I had to go save this guy when I saw someone fall off my bus. But this guy could have ran, and he stayed behind to help an old lady, not for fame, not for glory, not to get headlines, just to help an old woman who needed to. And he risked his life by staying longer to help this woman. That's the real hero. And so the story of Lech Lecha is the day-to-day challenges we all face. And the heroes sometimes are not the people who are famous, but Hashem knows the little struggles and tests and trials and tribulations that we all overcome in our daily lives. And that's the first test of Abraham, because that's the first test and the mark of the greatness of a Jew.